UK doesn't have a hand in it. I actually feel like that with a lot of things, there's a you know, the US, we're going to do this part of it, you know, kind of like we build in a house, you build the floor, I'll build the walls, that guy's going to put in the driveway, blah blah blah. And that the US and some of its quote allies, that's the way they operate. You know, as an example, France stole a lot of gold and uranium and stuff in Africa, but why were they able to do that? Because the US has Africa, and France could use the bases and the intelligence to, you know, overthrow a government here, rub out some guy here, and make sure they keep, you know, stealing whatever they need to steal, and they do that worldwide. So they work together. So really, the separation between the US and England when it comes to going around the world doing all kinds of nefarious things is grammatical. It's a the only separation, excuse me, you can separate them with words, but in deeds, they are in lockstep. You know, if you look back, I don't know if how people feel, but I studied the whole Russiagate thing when they tried to take Trump out with Russia. And I'm not a Trump guy, but reality is reality. And you could see how you know, it started in London. You could see how interlocked it was between MI6 and the CIA. And that's the way they do their thing. So will London get involved? Man, you're talking about, you know, that's like saying, will my fingers get involved with my hand?
Did you see the exact same fingerprints on both of the inland drone attacks, the attack that was launched into Russia and the attack that was launched into Iran?
Yeah, to me, what's conspicuous about that is they were playing the same game at exactly the same time. Although, let me say this, the more I've learned about Iran, it seems like it's a little different than they said it was. It seems like there's a lot of PR there. What we were originally told was they had drones all over the place and they had drone bases and they fired them and they did all this kind of stuff. It appears like there was a lot of car bombs, that there was some shoulder fired missiles, that it wasn't as sophisticated as we were told it was. It was effective. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't as sophisticated as we were told. But it was an internal, you know, let's go inside the country and let's, you know, create mayhem and mischief inside the country. And that's basically what they were doing. They were doing it at the same time. So, you know, the Russians are looking at it and they're like, yeah, it's kind of obviously like this was all one operation with, you know, two different wings going on. And that's the way it appears to me. And then which tells me this, that ain't the only two countries they're doing it in. They're doing that stuff all over the place.
Which goes back to how we started this conversation, saying that, you know, there's vested interests controlling these scenarios. And if you've got supposedly 4 countries, 2 different conflicts, and you've got the exact same methodologies, technology, intelligence, it shows you right there, there's an invisible hand controlling the whole thing. So we've got a comment here from Theron. If Iran has its facilities as deep as some assume, then the US, Israel will have to use low-level nuclear weapons to deactivate the target, and then other nuclear powers will consider using them. Is that a feasible scenario, or would they use MOBEs, or would they have to use nukes to get deeper?
Okay. I've been listening to Ted Postel from MIT recently, and he's been talking about the fact that he doesn't believe those bunker busters will work anyway. That he's like, nah, they're not going to work, that they can't do it. But keep in mind something. Let's not be fooled. This is not about nuclear weapons. This is about regime change. So even if they do something to, quote, get rid of the nuclear weapons, it will be for show only. You know what I mean? They'll say, all right, we've got to drop a couple of bombs to get rid of nuclear weapons. And they'll drop a couple bombs in the desert. And they'll say, yeah, we gave it a shot. I think it worked. You know, they'll do some propaganda thing. And really, they're trying to like take out the leadership. So the issue of whether they could or couldn't be successful in getting rid of Iran's nuclear program, when they've already admitted, when Trump already said, hey, you got evidence that they don't have a nuclear weapons program. I don't care. Well, if that's the case, then he's really not going all out to try to destroy something that he doesn't really care about, because he already knows it doesn't necessarily exist. So if they did something like that, it would only be to you know, to make it appear, look at that, we dropped some bombs in the desert, we tried to get rid of it. I think we did. And then they'd have a PR thing and say we did, even when they knew they didn't. Who could care less? As long as there's a big explosion, and they'd have pictures of the explosion, they'd have pictures from a satellite, pictures of the explosion. There you go. Did you see that explosion? It worked. It'd be PR. The BBC, CNN would all say, yes, sir, they dropped the bunker buster bomb and got rid of them. They care less if it works. You know what I mean? That's PR for us. That's to keep us bamboozled.
So, which other countries in that region could this conflict most easily spread to?
Couple of things. Number one, we certainly know that the Houthis have already said Yemen is, they've already said if that happens, then we'll, the Red Sea, we'll close it again, and we'll target bases. And let's face it, they don't bluff; they're going to do it. People forget something, and this is critical, and that is when there was actually a British and American proxy war against Yemen, against the Houthis for 7 years, and they had to stop. The UAE dropped out first, and Saudi Arabia dropped out second. And the reason why was the Houthis had knocked out almost 25% of the Saudis' oil production facilities with drones and missiles. They started hitting them, and the Saudis got like, "Hey, we don't mind doing your dirty work for you, America, but we're trying to eat here. We're getting ready to use our method of making money." So they walked out, right? And they had the capacity to do it. And that's when, to be frank, a lot of people started really looking at America's air defense system, saying, I think there's a lot of people just started seeing the vulnerability then, right? So certainly you've got the Houthis who have the capacity to strike some of the, to cause some trouble. Certainly there is word, I don't know how true it is, but it's been said that the Taliban have said, if this happens, we'll declare war on the U.S. Certainly, the other thing is the Pakistanis are not happy, and they've said, hey, if they go after us, all of the Muslim countries will eventually fall. The Pakistanis have nukes. Additionally, al-Sistani, who is like the highest Shia imam in Shiite in the religion, has said, you better not go after the boss. So what happens if he does some kind of a fatwa that says all Muslims have, you got all Muslims have to fight the U.S. or whoever, and now you've got some kind of a civilizational war. These things can go bad in a hurry, and so the potential there. You've got a lot of local militias who could hit U.S. bases or British bases or whatever. So bottom line is you're going to go to their region of the world. Let me add one other thing. What the hell do you think the immigration situation is going to look like? When they go to Syria and they stir up all of this mayhem in Syria, and 2 million Syrians end up. When you look at all of these people showing up, they go bomb the crap out of a country. They go destabilize a whole region, and all the people show up in Europe. How many people, if they destabilize this whole region, what do you think Europe is going to look like? It's going to look the people from the Middle East. You're going to destabilize that region. They'll be on boats, ships, planes, landing everywhere, and you know what I mean. And it's like, and it's like they deliberately do that. Now you're dealing with a country. Your country's got 1 million new people who don't speak the language, and they're trying to figure the culture out. The people are there are like, hey, they got all these new people, and I don't have a job, and they're getting a job, and they're working for less. And the billionaires are like, yeah, they're working for less. Ha ha ha. You know what I mean? You see all of these things that come together as a result of this, where the average working schmuck gets screwed. People forget about that. The one last thing, people forget that these gigantic influxes of immigrants are as a result of these bastards destabilizing whole regions of the world, and they all up and they go run wherever they can, and then we're all stuck dealing with the fallout, the human fallout from this crap. Can you imagine what a country of 90 million people and all the surrounding regions, what the immigration refugee disaster is going to look like?
I'm really glad you've raised that point, Garland, because there's people in this country right now who are just championing bombing Iran, and they're the exact same people who are tearing their hair out, complaining about how many migrants we've got here. And this is a globalist scam. They make trillions bombing the poorest countries in the world for the likes of Cheney and Halliburton. And then when these people whose countries are decimated flee to our lands, they make billions housing them, giving them the benefits. There's just all kinds of ways they make money off it. Even when the migrants get arrested in our country, they get £60,000 a year of taxpayers' money per person in the prison system. So every way this turns, these globalist vested interests are poised to make money off it at your expense, folks. This is why we've got to highlight this absolute Saddam Hussein weapons of mass destruction repeat we are seeing unfolding before our very eyes. We've got to highlight this as much as possible, get the pressure on, and hope that Trump's better business senses prevail. Do you think that is what's going to happen, or do you think we're going to see Trump sat like this next week, like Bush? We have just launched a campaign into Iraq to liberate the people.
Well, I would put it like this. If you ask me, well, I'll go in two directions. Do I think the odds are that the U.S. is going to get involved? Okay, my inclination is to say yes. However, I think there's a chance. I think it's not like I don't think it's 100% most likely, yeah, but I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance. And the reason is because the heat's been heavy on Trump the last few days. The word that I got, and I live close to DC. I used to, do work on Capitol Hill and still know a lot of people, right? And I had been told that Monday or Tuesday, they were going in Monday or Tuesday, that Monday or Tuesday was the day, right? There's a lot of heat on Trump. There's a lot of people in his inner circle saying, don't do it. People are calling him and knowing, saying, Trump, don't do it. People are texting him. He's getting all kind of messages, man, you better not do this. MAGA's furious. Everybody's furious. Don't do this, blah, blah, blah. So here's my point. While it may not seem like much, what you're doing, what I'm doing, what Doug McGregor's doing, what Scott Ritter and Larry Johnson are doing, what we're all doing on YouTube, Rumble, Rocket, whatever, right? The day-to-day basis, talking to people, keeping the conversation going. What we're all doing individually, it may not be much, but in the collective, we're getting things riled up and we're getting a discussion going so that when that it's enough force, it's enough cover for people to go to Trump and say, Trump, man, dude, have you turned on YouTube lately? Have you seen any of these shows? These people are furious. Have you look on Truth Social, look on Twitter, and there may be people who are pissed. And this, sometimes there's people that are unhappy about something, but they're afraid to speak out because they're afraid that like all of their buddies will say, oh, what are you, some kind of an anti-Semitic? You know what I mean? But when they see everybody saying, we got a problem with this, then it gives people cover. It gives people political cover to come out of their sheet a little bit, to come out of the closet and say, here I am. I'm opposed to this war. They feel good. So what you're doing, what we're doing, the people in the chat who are like sharing this stuff on their social media platform, who are posting on X and Twitter and social, Truth Social, all of us are doing the good work. And I believe that if it stops, if it doesn't happen, that all of us together can say we did it. Because before, in 2003, there wasn't this. There was no Shaun Attwood or Garland Nixon or Judge Napolitano or Dialogue Works or any of this. There was none of this. There was nobody to say don't do it. And they just told a bunch of lies and they did it. Now, the narrative, we're punching holes in that narrative every day. And I think the work we're doing is valuable. So I feel good about that. And I appreciate you, giving me the opportunity to come on and run off at the yap.
Thank you. And we appreciate the chat. Get your questions in the chat. We've got about 20 minutes before we hit the hour. And I know that a lot of the standard responses parroted by mainstream media and Piers Morgan to anyone who's steeped in geopolitics and history and has got a proper opinion on this. The standard responses are, but Iran is an evil regime. But Iran sponsors terrorism. But Iran is bad on female human rights. Even if all that is correct, is the solution to those problems shock and awe bombing the crap out of the entire country, killing millions of people, calling it collateral damage, 5 million dead, war on terror, more than half of them women or kids? Is that the solution? I don't think so. There's something wrong with my brain.
Well, here's the other thing. Number one, you're welcome to your opinion. You can say they're evil or they're doing wrong or doing this or doing that, right? Do I have a right to come over to your house and tell you how to raise your child? Do I have a right to come over there and say, well, you've got a 1-year-old. Well, the problem is you're not feeding them the right thing. Oh, they should be vegan. Oh, no, you shouldn't give them cow's milk. You should give them goat's milk. I have no right to come to you and tell you how to raise your child. And they got a country, and we got no right to tell them how they should live in their country, blah, 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 number one. But number two, it's all bull crap. The truth of the matter is this. They're going over there for regime change because there's a bunch of globalist bastards in the city of London or on Wall Street, a bunch of rich bankers, a bunch of people who are in charge of finance capital, who are lying to us. You know, there's an old saying, if people give you more, when people start giving you more than one reason for something, none of them's the real reason. You know, well, we got to do it because they're evil, okay, and we got to do it because they're not good for women, okay, and we got to do. Wait a minute. If you're going to do something, you got a reason. But when you start giving me a litany of reasons, none of them is the truth. Anytime somebody has 10 different reasons why they should do, and they don't have democracy. Last time I checked, we don't get what we voted for. I used to believe this is democracy, but if everybody votes for a guy who freaking says, you know what, vote for me and I'll focus on America and I'll make sure we don't get into wars and I'll make sure that the price of friggin' chicken goes down. And then he gets in and he does the opposite. I don't call that democracy. So perhaps we should fix ourselves. Perhaps we should. Doesn't get back to what I was talking about. I don't want to hear about China. I don't want to hear about Russia. I don't want to hear about Iran. We got problems. We need to fix our own problems and focus our own problem. And we're going to go to war with Iran. People are going to die. I'm not in favor of killing people, men, women, and children. I'm not for the war could expand. Our families could die. We don't need more war. In fact, most people vote against war. So anyway, that's where I am.
Did Hillary Clinton improve women's rights in Libya? God. Didn't Libya become the human trafficking capital of the world, whereby they had women in cages getting sold off as sex slaves?
How about this? Most people don't know. Iran, what was it? It was Afghanistan was like a fairly westernized, you might want to call it, country, right? And then in the 80s, what did the U.S. do? The U.S. started supporting bin Laden. There was a guy that the U.S. supported who was an extremist, like an Islamist extremist, and he would literally go around and throw acid. That's what he was known for. He'd go around to the markets, that women that didn't have scarves on, and throw acids in their face. The United States started supporting him and supporting these people. Why? Because they wanted to destabilize Afghanistan, because they wanted to use Afghanistan to destabilize Russia, because the government was friendly with Russia. Well, Russia was close by and they were making money with Russia. It was about economics, right? Certainly, that's their business. But the United States then ended up turning Afghanistan into a godforsaken hellhole. The Taliban are in power, which again, hey, that's their country. I don't even want to go taking them out of power. None of my business on the other side of the world. My point being, if you look at our history, the idea that the United States is looking out for the interest of the women, the gays, the this groups, the minorities, that they play that game. The liberal interventionism, we've got to go to war. Why? Because we've got to make the life better for people in that country, some group that we've chosen to use as an excuse. It's all lies and bullcrap. How about making, again, you ever notice there's a group that they never seem to be able to make out, to help out and look for regular old working class people back in their own country. For some reason, we're never on the top of the priority list. They can find somebody who's either gay or minority or some religion we never heard of halfway across the damn planet. They can spend $1 billion to make that person's life better, but they can't buy a couple extra books or put air conditioning or heating in the schools here so our kids can go to school and actually sit there and learn something. It's absurd.
Do you remember when they told us they were going into Afghanistan to stop the poppy production? Yet that product went up over 1,000%. The production of that product went up over 1,000%. They had the soldiers guarding the poppy fields.
Well, yeah, and then they tell us, and we're doing this stuff for the children. Yeah, what about Epstein? Everybody knows what the Epstein game was. I saw Epstein Island myself. I went to the Bahamas and I went to St. John's, and we're going around and they're like, okay, that's Coral Beach. And I'm like, that's beautiful. And the guy goes, and that's Epstein Island. I'm like, holy crap, Epstein Island. But I looked at it and I'm like, well, wait a minute. The British Virgin Islands are right here. I could take a kayak and go to it. And the U.S. Virgin Islands are right here. And there's Epstein Island right there. I don't think that's an accident. MI6 can trundle people right on over and back. The U.S. can over to Epstein Island. You know what I mean? It's not an accident. Right, like literally where the U.S. and the British border, I could kayak back and forth between the two. And Epstein Island is conveniently happens to be right there where the two come together. So, you know, the idea that they're looking out for people at the same time they're running pedophile rings, kind of rings hollow when it comes to from a moral perspective, shall we say.
Yeah, I wrote a book on that, Garland, and it got me in a lot of trouble. All right, let's go over some more viewer questions then. We got about 10 minutes left. So, Ron, do you think the Israel protective dome can last much longer?
I don't think it's lasting very. I think it's much longer. I think the first couple hours seem to think you go back. You know, here's what we're seeing too, and you got to be honest about this. The golden dome, whatever dome, iron dome, whatever they made. That thing was made to make money. It wasn't made to protect anybody. That's not a missile shield. That is a money laundering operation. What we're seeing, whether it's David's, now they name it, it's David Sling. It's some, Old Testament biblical name they give everything. It's Lockheed Martin. It's like a pack, it's the same old crap. They just stamp a different name, or like car companies that have 3 different car companies that use the same car and they stamp a different name on it. That's all it is. But here's the bottom line. It was a money laundering operation. How is it that somebody can fire a missile at you and it costs $100,000 to make the missile? And these, I think the THAAD system, it's Terminal High Altitude Air Defense System, $12 to $18 million per missile. So they're firing a missile that costs $100,000, and you're firing 2 or 3 missiles, minimum of two for every missile they fire at you. So they fire 100,000 missiles at you, and you fire $30 million worth of missiles back and miss it anyway, because they never made it to stop missiles. They made it as a money laundering operation. And so as a money laundering operation, like the F-35, you got to give them credit. For what it's made for, it's been very good. It's a money laundering operation. If you actually need an actual plane, you're probably better off with an old Cessna or a Piper Cub or something.
What is with these guys, Garland? It's like they've laundered all the money in the world. Trillions and trillions. When is enough? Doesn't it ever stop for them? It's just got to be more.
It's like the whole, look, as a matter of fact, something that I learned, I remember, do you remember when this guy, Sam Bankman-Fried, came out?
Yes.
With the whole crypto thing, right? And I'm looking at, and the first thing I learned was I'm looking and I find out that we're sending however X amount of billions over to Ukraine. And the Ukrainian government is like, yes, we need tanks and planes and this and that. And for some reason, they open an account with crypto and they start investing in crypto. The Ukrainian government is sending billions of dollars in crypto to this crooked, shiesty crypto firm, which started incidentally 20 days after Biden got to the office. And it has back doors where the money can go out and nobody. And I'm like, oh crap, that was a CIA MI6 money laundering operation. That's all it was. You know what I mean? It's like, oh crap, that's obvious. The money's going there, and they're like, all right, we'll send you 100 billion, right? Yeah, you keep your part. There, you get your fair share. We'll put that in there. Then we'll launder the rest out for whatever the hell we want, and it goes back to politicians, and everybody gets a piece of the pie. This is big money laundering operations.
And then you got Zelensky receiving all these weapons from America, selling them to the Mexican cartel. Yeah. you wonder why he's got a habit.
Well, how about this? Yeah, I don't know if you know this. Like, we sent some HIMARS or something over, right? And the Russians, like some of the Russians, like literally, the U.S. sent some when we sent the first HIMARS, like some like Russian intel met with the Ukrainians and like bargained and bought one. They're like, hey, we want to look at this thing, get a good look. And they literally, the Russians went over and bargained and bought them, under the table. Hey, you got some HIMARS there. Oh yeah. Give you $100,000 for it. All right, make it 150. Here you go. All right, see you later. Have it. The Russians drove the friggin' thing back to Moscow. I mean, it's absurd. The whole thing was a money laundering operation.
So,
with like 1.5 million people dead. That's the bad part of it.
Yeah, all blood sacrifice, folks. These bankers sit on the sidelines, rubbing their hands, letting your young people die, or the young people of Ukraine die, the young people of Russia die. And our hearts go out to all of these people. We're not taking sides against the populations of these countries. We're just trying to show the evil by the psychopathic leaders, the manipulation, the blood sacrifice of the young people on these battlefields. It's astounding. Over 1 million Ukrainians dead. That's terrifying. Nathan wants to know, do you think Trump will feel like he has to act with big actions just to make a statement And do you think it is the right thing to do? He's like the Emperor of Rome cornered right now, isn't he? His military's running amok, and they're just working for the benefit of shadowy elites.
I think you're right. I agree with you. I think he is cornered. I think he's got the super rich, Zionist kind of crew, and they're like, we gave you all of this money to get in, we want this and that. So you got people demanding him, you got people pushing at politicians, hey, you got to do this. So I think he's getting a lot of heat, but his base, and again, I'll go back to people like us. We are really, all of us are putting serious pressure through his base. And I think Trump is looking at these shadowy billionaires saying, hey, you better do this. And he's looking at his base saying, you better damn not do that. And he knows. And I made this point on Galloway the other week. Here's the thing about Trump. These people who are trying to get him to do this, and I'm not saying they got to twist his arm. I'm not defending Trump. I'm just saying the people that want this done, they're the same people that did Russiagate. They're the same people that probably tried to kill him. They're the same people who want to destroy him. And now they're trying to drag him into something that will destroy him. They will separate him from his base. And if Trump does what they want and his base walks away, they'll tear him to shreds. At that point, either possibly physically or at least politically, they will eliminate him. If they can say, Trump, do this, you got to do this for us, knowing that his base will walk away. And if they get him to do that, because all Trump has is the MAGA people, right? Because if you're a Republican or something and if I screw with Trump too far, the MAGA people will come in and they won't vote for me. And I can't go back to my, town where the area that voted me in, my district rather. I can't go back to my district because if I push too hard against Trump, because the MAGA base is real and they'll vote me out, right? So Trump has strength, but it's through that MAGA base. The MAGA base doesn't want this. And if Trump does something and they all walk away from him, and those many Republicans who are just globalists the same, neoliberal globalists the same, if they're paid by the same people, all of that, if they can get Trump, that base to peel away from him by him doing what they want, and they isolate him, they'll impeach him. They'll throw him in jail, if not kill him, if they can get away with it. He's finished. He's done. They'll separate him from MAGA and they will eliminate him. It would be suicide for Donald Trump politically to do that. And I wonder if he has enough political intuition to be able to see that. I don't know. Or, we are kind of like, there are a lot of people saying, Donald Trump, were you a complete and total fraud? If you do this, you're a total fraud. So I don't know. Maybe he is a total fraud. I don't know. But we shall see.
Or maybe he will pull something out of the hat at the last minute and astound everybody. Let's hope so. What's equally insidious, like you pointed out there, is it's the invisible hand, the deep state, that tried to assassinate him and now getting the neocon, globalist, set fire to the Middle East agenda play out in front of their eyes. And you mentioned Galloway, and credit to Galloway for storming off the Piers Morgan show, because Piers Morgan, would you believe it or not, Garland, was against the war in Iraq. He saw through the exact same lie they're telling us today, but now he's signed right up for it. How the hell does that work?
You have to feel like Piers Morgan. I was at Fox for many years, and I can tell you there are people in, I was in mainstream news, and there are people who are pundits, right? And I'll tell you this, there are pundits who they wouldn't care if they were in a sitcom. They wouldn't care if they were on a game show, they wouldn't care what. They just want their face on TV. You know what I mean? They got a big ego, and you see them. They're in the makeup room, man. I mean, guys, girls, whatever. They're spending so much time in the makeup room. That type, right? And they're making everything, and they get on, and they're like, oh, and they're so excited because their whole thing is the jazz of being on TV. Hey, man, I get limos, the girls, the music, the people, everybody wants to see me. They want me to come speak. You know what I mean? So their whole thing is, I will, and you've probably seen them. They're on TV as a conservative. Then they lose their job, and then they go get another job on another station, and now they're a liberal. And you're like, what the hell? Because they're really nothing. So I think Piers Morgan is one of these people who he's getting paid. And if he's getting paid, he's an actor. And if he's getting paid to take a position, he knows the position that he has to take to continue to get his check, to keep his fame, for people to talk about Piers Morgan all the time because they're seeing him on it. And so I just think he's one of them. And I saw so many of them. he probably, boy, you see that guy in the makeup room, he probably spends 45 minutes before he gets out of the makeup room.
Well, he's going to be sorry when the alarms are going off, the sirens are going off, and there's mushroom clouds outside of his window. So Nathan's saying, if World War III does happen realistically, how long will it last with all the power of all the countries, the warheads, in your opinion?
Well, here's the way I look at it. Yeah, it's almost like anything else. If that happens, there's not even a conversation to be had. You know what I mean? We're done. So to talk about the existence of mankind is a philosophical discussion, because if it happens, then there's nothing we can do anyway. So, how long will it last? I think we should talk about how we can prevent it. I think we should act to prevent it. And those are the things we can't control. And let's face it, all of us are mortal. All of us are going to be dead sooner or later. Look, I could walk out, get off of this right now and slip on a banana peel and fall down the stairs in my house and die. So we're not guaranteed tomorrow. So I think the focus has to be on what we can do today as best we can to contribute to the betterment of society and to try to prevent war and bad things from happening.
What do you think of the increasing importance of drones and AI?
Man, the AI, that it makes you think back to the original Terminator, like 1984, right? Way back then, they were like, yes, sir, AI goes, becomes self-aware and then blows us all to hell. It's AI. Number one is it's creating, effectively, you're creating a sociopath. That's all it is. You're creating something that kind of thinks, and there are people that argue that that's the wrong term, that it's predictive programming. It's not intelligence, it's predictive programming, which again means that this is not something that thinks and has a consciousness. It is a program that reacts to stimuli. But the bottom line is it's bad news for us. And I tell you that this is what I believe, in the same that the ultimate plan of the globalist and the ruling elite is to have jobs, have everything, every factory, everything, so that we're kind of unneeded. At that point, this is where I go full conspiracy theorist. At that point, you got a phone and you got an app. And guess what they do? Every month, because there's no jobs or anything, every month, your app gets your digital currency in there. Okay, well, you get, 4,000 pounds, whatever, 5,000 pounds every month of digital currency because there's no jobs. AIA took them over. But don't worry, we'll take care of you. Now, that digital currency also means if you go to a protest, well, you might not get any digital currency. Oh, you have to use the AI taxis, the driverless AI taxis. But if you do something that you shouldn't, it might not work on AI taxis. You might not get as much. Now, if you turn in a friend of yours who did go to a protest, you might get another 5%. They can completely manipulate you. So I think the ultimate plan is they're talking about, well, AI are pretty much, we won't need anybody to do anything. At that point, the only thing they need to do is manipulate you, and they can use finance as a digital currency to just constantly manipulate you and to control you. And the most important thing they'll need to do is to control you.
Garland, we appreciate your common sense and your knowledge, and a huge thank you for coming on. Is there anything you would like to say to the viewers in conclusion? What can they look forward to on your channel in the coming days?
Well, let's see. I got Andre Martianov tonight at 9 p.m. Andre is like an engineer, and he understands a lot. He's trained as far as military hardware, and I want to learn a lot about. We'll talk to him tonight at 9 p.m. about like air defense from the perspective of somebody that understands the physics and all behind that. So I want to talk to him about that, and just I'll be on there running my yap every day. So whatever comes to mind, and I have a lot of good guests and a lot of fun stuff.
Huge thank you for coming on. We salute your work. I'm going to let you go and close the show, and you take care, my friend. Cheers.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks, Garland. Bye-bye. What a phenomenal guest, folks. I'm putting Garland's YouTube channel link in the live chat again. If you're watching this on replay, please go down to the description box. And we've got a lot of people coming on tomorrow, including Andre, as Garland just mentioned on his channel. We are starting with Larry Johnson at 5 p.m. UK. Then we have got Andre at 7 p.m. UK. After Andre, we have got retired Colonel Larry Wilkerson at 9 p.m. UK. So we've got, I think I'm going from about 5 p.m. till 11 tomorrow night. So anyway, thank you for tuning in, folks. We're going to keep going with this. Like I said, I've been on the road for a week, been growing increasingly frustrated by the people parroting the same absolute BS they told us about Saddam Hussein, weapons of mass destruction. And now it's Iran all over again. Yet so many people are buying into it. Cannot believe people will fall for this twice. I know it was 20 years ago or so, but come on. I'm not talking to you viewers. I'm talking to people out there who haven't yet woke up. Let's help these people wake the F up so that we're not the ones, worrying about the futures of our children and what kind of world they're going to live in and how long we're all going to survive, huddle together and survive a new